It's chaos.
It's a different type of Sunday scary.
It's your newest obsession.
It's Dirty Driving, a Formula One podcast.
We're the Hornsby sisters. I'm Katie.
And I'm Megan.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Hello, people. How are we?
I'm feeling good today. Our new bucket hats got in this morning. Megan, I've got yours right here. Our new Valtteri bucket hats. So I'm living today. I'm feeling great. How are you feeling?
I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this weekend, and a lot of them just feel uncomfy.
Yeah, a lot of discomfort this
and that
weekend.
sounds so odd. Like, I was discomfortable by like a lot of the things, but I was really uncomfortable by a lot of the things.
Tons of news, drama, interesting comments have been made.
Just like a lot of shit went down,
yeah.
and like qualifying was uncomfy at moments, and then the race was real uncomfy when they were all up in Yuki Tsunoda's belts halfway through.
Yeah, we are definitely gonna discuss that for sure. Yeah, just the pigeons alone, I think, was enough discomfort for the whole entire weekend. Oh, the pigeons are back in turn
So my
7.
thing, okay, look, I gotta move my computer real quick. So the thing about the pigeons is like, look, if you took the bravery of one of those fuckers, that would be more bravery than I will ever have in my entire life. The pigeon is just straight walking across as cars are just zooming, like no fear in the world. I have seen squirrels crossing a sidewalk with more fear than those pigeons.
Hey, they wanted that grass seed that was. Did you hear that? They like were dissecting what the pigeons were doing and why they were there. And I was just like, we've got no other facts to spew out. No, we're just going to talk about what the pigeons are doing.
The best part was when, I don't remember, it must have been Jolyon Palmer said, don't forget your pigeon, or don't bring your pigeons, because they were making fun of the flares. He was like, and leave your pigeons at home or something. And I was like, that's like not how it works, right? Right? Like, that's not. I also like, look, clearly that pigeon is more agile than the beavers, the groundhogs that were in. Literally, a beaver is gigantic. I cannot believe I thought that it was a beaver in Canada. But look, are way more agile than the groundhogs in Canada. Because look, Nicholas Latifi, there was some comments made about him from Alfa Romeo. Ooh, that was spicy. But also, Nicholas Latifi took out a groundhog, but nobody took out a damn pigeon.
No,
the rats of the sky defeated the Zandvoort.
The rats of the sky.
They are the rats of the sky. I am also, for anybody so concerned about this, I am deathly, like, I do not like birds. Like, I really hate birds. I find them terrifying because they can attack from all angles. So the fact that a rat of the sky defeated the Formula One cars is just like, that's what happened this weekend. Who won? Don't care. Rats of the sky won.
Yeah, Megan's deathly afraid of birds and hates pigeons. And living in a city, there's pigeons everywhere. Like, I see a pigeon every day of my life. It's disgusting. And do you ever get like intrusive pigeon thoughts where you're just like, damn, I just want to maybe kick this pigeon?
No, because they're not. No? Katie, do you believe that they're agents of the government or not?
Hell yes. Have you ever seen a baby pigeon?
Do you think that these pigeons were sent by somebody to disrupt the race? Clearly it didn't work, though. Maybe they made those government pigeons too brave.
They train them too well. Those are the elite of the elite.
They're like little. I find that whole like the pigeons are fake thing. All birds are like all birds not being real is hilarious to me. And I would really like to believe that one of the teams got a government to send pigeons in.
I told Dad about birds being run by the government, and I don't think I've heard him laugh louder.
We really need to analyze this. We need to discuss with him which government he feels like would have tried to disrupt Zandvoort. We'll bring back that
'cause I feel
information
like-
next week. We've had a
Yeah,
lot of
for sure.
animal incidents this year, groundhogs and pigeons. Wilden.
I'm sure there's been something else too.
I don't know. The groundhog incident really
I don't
scarred
know.
me as we were literally on the track when it happened. Well, in actual news, not irrelevant thoughts about birds, let's get everybody caught up on what happened ahead of the Grand Prix. The first one I am so excited about. I watched the trailer, the teaser. I never know what's the difference between a trailer and a teaser, whatever. I watched the teaser / trailer for this, and I haven't watched episode 1 yet. I'm kind of waiting for a couple of them to come out so that I don't watch one episode and get annoyed like I did with House of the Dragon. But Alfa Romeo is releasing their own like short Drive to Survive type docu-series on YouTube called Beyond the Visible. And like, I'm a huge Alfa Romeo fan now because of Valtteri. Cue Katie talking about the bucket hat. So I'm really excited about this. The teaser / trailer was cool. I'm interested. Like I like this kind of inside look, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see other teams doing little mini segments like this. In fact, I would love that. I would really, really like that.
I would really enjoy that. I think Drive to Survive is one thing and offers a great perspective into the sport, especially for beginners. But having each team compile an inside view of how they operate, how they function, how they are teammates with each other, I think would just do so much more for the sport and would create almost like a complimentary mini TV show series to the races that are actually happening.
1,000% agree with you. I also think that these mini short type Drive to whatever you want to call them, docu-series, whatever, I think they would really it would show how much goes on beyond what happens Thursday through Sunday. And everybody knows, like, you can hear like Red Bull has 1,500 workers, Mercedes has 1,000 workers back at the factory, and those numbers are impressive, right? But actually, anytime we get a window into what's happening back at base, it's this understanding that there is so much going on beyond what's happening at the track. I would love to, we know that people back at, base are watching the race and, probably communicating in some form of or another, but I would love to see, like, what does it look like to be at the MTC being the base team watching the race? Like, are the engineers all watching together? Because in my mind, they have to be, right? Like, you've spent months and months and months perfecting this car. It's not like you're just not going to watch the performance of it.
Yeah, and like, I know they analyze data in real time at the factory, and they are that support role to the people on track. So I would just love to see more of how, kind of what you were saying, but that interaction of, here's what's happening here, here's what's happening here, here's how we come together as a team and make it work for the weekend, and then here's how it looks post weekend. Like the pre, the during, and the post, I would love to see of, are the drivers coming back to the factory? Are they going straight to race? Are they, spending time in the simulator? What does the inside eye look like in terms of the whole picture? Because just seeing the people at the race and seeing the race it's one day
exactly.
of the week.
Like, give us more of that content to make it become more alive, more realistic, less like demystified in a sense.
And continue giving personality to the drivers, the team principals, the teams themselves. Continue to give fans reasons to be fans of each team.
1000%.
Because like after I haven't watched the first episode either. I was kind of waiting to see if we wanted to watch it together, but I'm sure after we watch, we're going to be even bigger Alfa Romeo stans than we were just because Valtteri joined the team.
Hands down. And honestly, I would love to see I know we're not going to get like post-race debriefs, but kind of is the factory happy when there's like, what does it look like when they celebrate success? What does it look like after a troubling weekend? You know, this weekend we saw Valtteri Bottas DNF. So what does it actually look like to be at the factory knowing that your driver just DNF'd? Like, do you keep watching the race? What do you do? I think a lot of those questions seem like minute, but are the emotion and the backstory that we need to bring to the sport to continue to drive fans to be not just fans of the sport, but fans of individual teams.
And drivers.
Hands down.
And team principals, because I would say I'm quote unquote familiar with maybe 4 of the 10 team principals, like in the fact of like, I feel like when I read their quotes, it makes sense that they've said things like that. I understand, what face Toto gives the camera and maybe what that means. Like I've got more of an understanding of who they are as a person. And I'd love a further deep dive on the leader of the team, the support of the team, the drivers of the team. I just want more. At the end of the day, like give me more content, give me more behind the scenes, give me more pieces to the whole puzzle of Formula One that I think now that, we've been to a race, now that we research every race, we're craving more of it. And I know that there are other fans out there craving more too.
Well, in other news, this is the low point and the high point, I feel like, of the news. We had Fernando Alonso apologize to Lewis Hamilton for his idiot rant on the radio messages at the Belgian Grand Prix. So low point, idiot rant, high point, the apology. But speaking ahead of the Grand Prix, Alonso said he regretted the outburst and offered an apology to Hamilton, who he called a champion and a real legend of our time. Then they shared a really cute moment where they exchanged a hat with Lewis's signature and a Mercedes hat too. Fernando Alonso. The question will be, will he wear that hat as an Aston Martin driver next year? I highly doubt it. If I was Fernando Alonso, I would put it in a box and frame it. I know Alonso has some beef with the man, so we'll see what happens to that hat. We'll probably never see it again. Let's just say it will not be cherished like other gifts that Lewis Hamilton has given out.
And, Megan, I don't know if you caught this during the race or it might have been during qualies, but one of the announcers, I think George Russell, said something about another one of the drivers and was
like
super
always.
Polite about it. And then there was another like always, but then another driver made a comment and the commentators were like, wow, everyone's being really respectful this week and really polite. And John said the same thing. He was like, oh, everyone's being super nice to each other and very kind and all of this.
Because the internet lost their mind over Fernando Alonso.
Yeah.
I last my mind over Fernando Alonso calling Lewis Hamilton an idiot.
And I mean, in the book of insults, being called an idiot is not very high up there. It's very low. So I think this whole thing just has reminded me how much respect that there is in the sport, which I appreciate. So glad Fernando offered.
Absolutely. Speaking of the Belgian Grand Prix, there's one more little bit of information we have to share, is that we learned that Lewis Hamilton took a 46G hit at the Belgian Grand Prix when his car landed after that contact with Fernando Alonso, which he admitted was his fault. But 46 Gs, how do they even calculate that? It's my dumb science question of the day. Like, how do you even calculate? I mean, I know it has sensors, but like at one point are you like, it was just max G's? Like they run out of like categories for hurricane. You're just like, it was a shit ton G's. Like they don't actually quantify the number anymore.
I would love to know like the highest amount of G's. I'll start Googling that after we record.
Okay,
like
Katie's got her science hat on.
I'm gonna get my NASA hat out and do some research.
Jeez Louise. Speaking of Jeez Louise, guess what? Jeez Louise, Michael Massey landed his first job since he was removed as the F1 race director. He's taking the role of the chairman of the Supercar Commission, which oversees the sporting and technical rules of the Australian series. He is going to oversee sporting and technical rules. I'm going to make my snide comment now. Hopefully he reads them and remembers to accurately adjudicate them. Moving on. The Dutch Grand Prix organizers said that there would be no repeat of the embarrassing behavior of some of the Orange Army fans that marred this year's Formula One race in Austria. I've seen a couple of things on the internet about some unattractive behavior of the Orange Army fans. I think the biggest unattractive behavior that was publicly shown was the fact that fans took it upon themselves to throw not one, but 2 flares onto the track. And if you think that's funny, if you think that's cool, if you were in the fans and decide to throw something onto the track where drivers are flying very, very fast around and could be very, very injured, you are an idiot. And I'm not apologizing for saying that.
No. You could hear it in the commentators' voices. You could hear it in how, people talk about it. It is just not right.
No.
We are there to watch a race, to watch a spectacle that has had so much work put into it by the organizers at the track, by the organizers in the FIA, the organizers in each team, the drivers, and to be that disrespectful and choose to throw something on the track. I don't have words for it. I was shocked.
I'm also like, look, if you as the Dutch Grand Prix organizers have made the rule that no flares are allowed, maybe you should fucking look for a flare. Like clearly no one turned them in. I'm sorry. No one turned them in. Flat out no one. It was orange. So I'm a little bit like, clearly you actually didn't give a shit about your statement. Because clearly people were still acting atrociously. And I know that their statement was about more than just the flares, but I think it's indicative of like, we'll just not follow the rules. Like, I also find it atrocious that, look, Zandvoort is not even on my list of tracks I would ever go to because I know that I would not wear Max Verstappen gear and I would be ostracized for it. So it's not even on my list. Like, and that sounds shitty to say because I think it would be a really cool track to go to, but I don't want to put myself in that position where I get harassed because I support another driver. At the end of the day, if you like F1, then you should be kind to that person. You should be kind to anybody, but I feel like globally there's a giant community of F1 fans, but not necessarily in every like local situation. And so whenever you see an F1 fan, you should be like, oh my God, you're an F1 fan. Like, who's your driver? Like, who's your team? Like, oh my God, did you watch this last race? It should be a community of like openness and acceptance, and everyone should be allowed to participate in it. Like, full stop, you should be kind to everybody. But there's such a small like group of F1 fans locally for some people that like, be fucking nice already. Who cares who you support as a driver? Let's talk about why you think Max Verstappen is the rightful champion last year, because he's not. But that's a conversation we can have.
And I think it just goes back to respect. The drivers have respect for each other. The teams have respect for each other. they get hot-headed and they call each other idiots and they call each other other things, but they always apologize and they always put themselves in the right because of how much they do respect each other. There's only 20 of them, and to not then respect each one of them as a driver as well as a fan, that to me means that you are not doing your job as a Formula One fan. At the end of the day, you should respect everyone. You should respect all the drivers. You should respect all the teams. You might not like them. They might piss you off come week to week, but you should still be respectful of them.
Correct. Be respectful. Like, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, Katie, let's get into our silly season update. I'm going to start us off with what I'm dubbing the McLaren bullshit. It doesn't get any other name.
Love it.
So last Monday, that would have been like August 29th, I think, the contract negotiation the contract recognition board, I'm sorry, not negotiation board, the contract recognition board decided that Piastri can race for McLaren. And in those documents, Katie, get ready for this. I don't know if you've heard this, revealed that Oscar Piastri signed that contract in July around the British Grand Prix. He signed that contract July 4th. It literally said, the board released a statement that said the only contract to be recognized by the board is the contract between McLaren Racing Limited and Mr. Piastri dated 4 July 2022. That was 7 weeks before they announced the early termination of Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo admits that he had no idea about this. 1 week after that signature happened, Ricciardo publicly said that he was committed to McLaren until the end of next year. Then Andrea Seidel was like, everything's been very transparent with Daniel. But like, really, where? Clearly not. And all I can say is I'm fucking pissed at how messed up it is. Like, look, I get it. McLaren was hedging their bets to have somebody next year, but like, clearly you weren't transparent and you made a fool out of our man.
Transparent is the last word I would use to describe what happened between McLaren and Daniel Ricciardo. And so the fact that they're going out of their way to say that they were very transparent, it's total bullshit. So you named this little segment of you talking about McLaren perfectly because
it's not bullshit. Transparent. It's
and
opaque.
It's opaque. And you know what? I feel secondhand embarrassment for Daniel.
I just feel for him.
Like, not embarrassed.
No,
maybe
embarrassment's
you're right. A harsh way to say it, but like, or secondhand,
sad.
Like betrayal. I'm
sad.
He was betrayed by his team and not told the truth.
And then this weekend we have the clip of him saying, like, I'm going to take a year off and come back in 2024 when he was talking to Checo. And I was like, rage, pure rage.
Oh, and we got to talk about it.
The struggling again McLaren.
Struggling again, McLaren. I don't know who in the TV production
that had to
box,
be a mistake, right?
You think it was a mistake typing out on live television?
No, I think they like typed it out as a joke and like we're going to go back and fix it and never did.
Damn. I thought they were just being savages in the TV production box.
No idea.
Struggling again, McLaren.
Let's take a moment of silence for that statement.
Moment of silence for that.
Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Moving on to more silly season drama. We have Schumacher to cut ties with Ferrari at the end of the 2022 F1 season. He is going to be a free agent as he searches for a drive for 2023. This was like the natural end of his Ferrari Driver Academy contract. It was always going to come to an end at the end of this year. Not super shocking, but there is no confirmation from Haas that he won't be driving. However, it's pretty accepted around the paddock that he's not going to be retained by the U.S. team for the third season in 2023. So there's a chance that Italian Jesus might take the wheel next to K-Mag. I think long term, this is the best move for Schumacher to leave the Ferrari Driver Academy, even if he loses a drive for next year, because there is really, if you look, like the Scuderia is locked up. Carlos and Charles ain't going anywhere for a hot minute. So I think it is a smart move for him to get out of the Ferrari track. But I hope that he is able to find a drive. And it was really great to see his mom at the track this weekend. I was like, I paused it and I was like, it's Mama Schumacher. And literally it was just me and the dogs. And it was just really anticlimactic.
I know. I always get, after watching Schumacher and learning more about her and her strength and just everything, I like every time I see her at the track, I just get so excited. And I get excited that for Mick, that his mom gets to be there. I feel that way with Papa Perez or Father Hamilton. I don't feel that way about, Papa Stroll or Josh.
I mean, we didn't even see Papa Stroll in Canada, and I'm still pissed about it.
Dude, also, total sidebar. Lance finally reemerged on Instagram yesterday. First of all, I'm not sure he knows how to put stuff on his story because he didn't zoom in on any of the photos. So it was like boxy, but whatever. That's besides the point. Maybe his girlfriend isn't managing his social media, but like, where has that man been? Like, did Lawrence lock him up for summer break?
I have no idea. But did you see him in the driver's parade? AirPods in, sunglasses on, resting bitch face as he's like getting driven around the track. I was like, oh, Lance, you were in your like villain moment. You looking like...
No, I think he's in his villain era.
We haven't really seen any villain moments.
He never responded to my DM.
Well,
hey,
we didn't actually.
I think I'm going to DM him again.
Respond to that. I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah, no, I didn't. But like, I mean, you good, sir? Because I don't think you are. Anyway, do you think? I'll get us back on track. Do we think Schumacher is going to have a seat?
Not sure. I think we got a couple of, I think he's out, unfortunately, which is really sad, but I could see him being a reserve driver, taking a year off, kind of pulling like an Albon or an Ocon. Because it looks like Gasly is going to be the most likely candidate for the Alpine seat, which is going to open up the AlphaTauri seat, which Senator Palpatine Helmut Marko himself has stated that there is an agreement to take Colton Herta if the FIA grant him a super license, because he doesn't technically have a super license right now. So there's a couple of ways that they can mathematically do it, like grant more points for stuff. But ultimately, I think that would be a shakeup if suddenly Colton Herta is there. And then lastly, in the silly season news, it looks like Zhao is going to be likely announced at staying at Alfa Romeo here shortly. Not surprised that we see that happening. So lots to come. We still haven't really, I feel like the silly season has been very like elongated.
Yeah, definitely already like triple or quadruple the time that it was last year, because last year it went like that. It was just super quick. So we've got maybe 4 spots open left. I can't count that quick. But I'd say it's once the next one hits, I think we're gonna tumble down and get a lot of announcements. So we're just waiting for that next one to trigger the downslope of the end of silly season.
I feel like everything's falling apart. That now this McLaren bullshit's happening, because literally a giant screw just fell onto the desk and I have no idea where that came from. So the world is falling apart now that McLaren's being bullshitty. So, the whole desk.
Like from the ceiling?
From the mic.
Oh, okay.
Everything's falling apart.
Falling apart.
Struggling again, McLaren.
Struggling again, Megan.
Danny, Rick, and I, same boat. Kinda, sort of.
All right, well, let's talk about Zandvoort. Let's talk about the circuit. Let's talk about the Grand Prix. We're going to give you the download before we jump into all of the drama. But the circuit actually opened in August of 1948 and hosted the Zandvoort Grand Prix. It became the Dutch Grand Prix the following year in 1949, and then it joined the F1 calendar in 1952. I'm sure most of you know this, but Formula One officially started in 1950, so it started 2 years after the start of the modern World Championship. So it's been a part of the calendar for a while. The track is made up of roads that were built in World War II by the occupying German army. So a lot of history. And it's actually a really cool circuit. It's really quick, pretty insane. It's old school styled, and it's got this roller coaster feel with swoops and flows to the sand dunes that make up the surrounding geography of that area of Zandvoort. For the GP, this is the 32nd Dutch Grand Prix, all of which have been held at Zandvoort, which is located just 30 miles north of Amsterdam on the North Sea coastline. Again, it's a city full of sand dunes, creating, the undulating lines of the track. And it actually looks beautiful. I don't know if I remember from last year, the beach with all those cute little towns or townhomes, or little, they're not shacks, but cottages. I had no recollection of that from previous year, or I guess just from last year. And so it looks like a cute little town to go and visit and spend a couple days in. So I might actually have to add the track to my list.
We'd have to wear orange, a lot of it, aggressively, with the number 33
a lot of orange.
And 1 on it.
I think I could be okay with that for one weekend. Megan, not so sure.
I think my only issue is if I said something complimentary about Lewis Hamilton, I would be yelled at. They burned a Mercedes hat there. I'd have to go undercover as an agent of the Orange Army.
Maybe we could infiltrate and then
talk positively about Lewis Hamilton in Max Verstappen shirts. I don't think that's going to work either.
And take down, I don't know. Okay, poor thought.
We'll get kicked out even faster.
Okay, so
than the guy who threw the flare on the track.
So the circuit hosted the Dutch Grand Prix between 1948 and 1985. It skipped a couple years, and the last GP was actually held in 1985 before the track and the GP took a hiatus. Niki Lauda's last win was there for that last race before the hiatus, and the first race in 1952 was dominated by Alberto Ascari with a 1-2-3-4 Ferrari. So lots of history at this track. In 2021, just last year, it returned after the 36-year hiatus. The plan was for it to come back in 2020, but again, due to COVID, it got pushed.
Dude, I just
back.
learned, Katie, that last year, I don't think I paid attention to this or knew this, even though it was as packed as it was and so full of orange, it was only at 2/3% capacity. Holy shit. So they I thought it was wild in last year. This year it was even more wild. It was like a whole ass Max Verstappen festival.
It really was. The amount of people, I was watching it with my intern, and he was like, oh my God, there's so much orange. And I was like, yeah, it's all Max Verstappen. He goes, no McLaren. No. And I was like, no McLaren. It's literally all for Max.
I'm sad we didn't get more I'm sad we didn't get more McLaren content, specifically from Lando Norris being like, look at all of our fans here for us. I thought that last year was so funny. But
hilarious.
I guess if they're chanting Supermax in the stands, you can't really fake that they're McLaren fans.
No, you cannot. Also, Orange Army is very different from Papaya Nation.
Two different energies.
Sadly. Different energies. So it was Max Verstappen who took home his victory last year in 2021. It was his first home race win at the circuit, obviously because it's the first time coming back since he has been raced.
It was also the first
so
he was the first Dutch man to win at the circuit. So it was like
at
a
the
first
home race
for him and for the circuit. It's weird.
Yeah. And he won from pole position, and it was actually the 13th time the race had been won from pole position, which just shows the difficulty in overtaking at this track. So
now we're up to 14.
Obviously, we obviously now know now that Max Verstappen won this weekend from pole, so make it 14. Another note on the circuit and track was that, and I thought this was super cool. I'm actually pretty excited to talk about it. In one of the gravel traps, they made some altercations and tested out a new form of gravel to prevent, the gravel kick up onto the track. So basically, it's this 1 meter wide section at the edge of the gravel trap in turn 12 that was replaced by this material that's almost like gravel covered in resin, which it is what it is. Not almost, but it's covered in resin, and it's like playground material, is what it reminded me of. And again, the purpose of it is so it doesn't kick up gravel onto the track. And I didn't do enough reading on like what the results were or how they felt like it went.
Did anyone even talk about how they felt? Like, I haven't seen anything. I don't.
So I'm like curious to know, like, did they think it was successful? Is this going to be implemented at more? Was it kind of just like a test and a scratch?
Did they
I don't know.
Get enough data? That's what I just thought. It was interesting that we haven't heard anything since then. But I guess that's something maybe we'll hear from this week.
Yeah, maybe on like the tech analysis, tech talk, or something like that. They'll maybe deep dive into it a little bit more. But super intriguing. I feel like F1 is always innovating. And so, using this idea of this playground material to keep gravel from bouncing on the track so that, we don't have to worry about extra safety cars or extra yellow flags or things like that. It's ingenious, and it's just cool to think about all the smart brains that are behind Formula One and all the different
I did think
ways.
It was funny that the same weekend that they talk about this new track resin situation, you also have the incident where Yuki Tsunoda went off and then flew a ton of gravel into his car, and the commentators had to be like, they'll have to get the Hoover out. They're going to be hoovering that car all night. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much discussion about a vacuum. It must have been I think it was a slow practice session.
Moment.
Okay, let's talk about Let's talk about practice. Wow, I don't even know what I just tried to say there. Whatever. So FP1 Friday morning for me, Friday afternoon for them. Saw the Mercedes show up with a little vroom vroom pace. They started the weekend off a little hot. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen had a short session due to a smoking gearbox that brought out a red flag. There were lots of questions on reliability and or a gearbox penalty. Ultimately, he wouldn't receive a penalty on the weekend. But it was also interesting that before that session, the team had actually changed the main shaft insert on the gearbox. So I think there is maybe some questions still circulating about that gearbox. And if he's going to have to take a penalty sooner rather than later, I would probably bet sooner because they've burned through one. In that session, we had Lewis Hamilton. Okay, so we had two things that were interesting. Okay, I'm going to go through both of them, then I want your opinion on them. First thing was we had Lewis Hamilton with radio problems, which we saw multiple times of him being like, I can't hear you, man. I can't hear you. Which is literally me walking around on my cell phone all the time. And two, we have Michael Schumacher, who almost got a penalty when he got caught up in that Max Verstappen red flag. He was doing a practice start, And right when he did the practice start, the flag showed. So he didn't get a penalty because essentially the incident happened like concurrently with a red flag like showing up. So he was already like going. But both of those incidents made me realize how much of this sport is like still human. As great as the car is, I feel like this year we've been talking a lot about the upgrades, about the car, about specs, setups, and all that. A lot of it is like human as well. And so let's start with the Lewis Hamilton one, Katie. Without the radio, like, how do you fucking function on that track, especially in Zandvoort when there's blind corners and you have no idea who's ahead of you, flying around you, or whatnot? Like, imagine being out there without a radio.
I can't. I think it would be so dangerous. Like to not in that one moment where, you know, Lewis came up around the hill and almost ran
Carlos
into,
Sainz.
I can't remember who it was, but thank you. Carlos Sainz was sitting there. It's scary. At the end of the day, it's super scary. I think about even like when I'm driving and I take like a sharp corner and they've got the big mirror to show like if someone's coming the other way, or pulling out of a garage. I would love someone to come on into my ear and say, "Oh, Katie, there's a car approaching. Be careful." Or "There's a car ahead of you. Be careful." And so I don't know the answer to that of how they would know without radio. And I feel like we saw today, or we saw this weekend, how scary it can be when the engineer and the team is not communicating with the driver. And I feel like we saw that a couple times this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it before. Like, there was that whole incident where Kimi Räikkönen didn't have a radio, and then there's one time where Italian Jesus didn't have a radio. But I just, like, it baffles me that he was able to keep going without being able to communicate to the team. Like, that's the part of it that I'm like, holy shit. That'd be so tough. So tough.
Yeah.
And then the Schumacher situation, like, getting ready to do a practice start and watch at the same time that there's a flag, like, it's weird timing, and that probably happens like once every couple of seasons, right? But it's the fact that you have to do so much in that car at the same time and still manage to like pay attention to the flag situations. Because we saw that with Carlos Sainz and Ocon in the race when they were going down the start finish straight, and Bottas was pulled off to the side DNFing, and there's the yellow flags. And so it's like, hi, I'm in the middle of overtaking, trying not to hit Bottas. Oh, there's a yellow flag. Like,
yeah, being hyper aware of everything around you while going
217
so fucking fast. Yeah, 207. I was gonna say 230. Like going so fast that we were watching. I watched Fast and the Furious last night.
Weird choice,
the first
but okay.
one, weird choice, but hear me out. Like the graphics of them driving in the very first race, I'm like, it looks like they're going as fast as a Formula One car. And I know they're not, because they're only going 170. And so it's like, I don't know. I was just thinking about how quick that they go and like how you can be aware of everything. And like when they do the helmet cam and you see them like take their hand off the steering wheel and like either wave or flick someone off or whatever. I'm like, how are you doing that right now? Like both hands on the wheel, please.
I got scared when I hit 90 one time. I mean, I've gone faster than that, but I literally scared myself at 90. So first off, we all know I could never drive an F1 car. Never intending to drive an F car. Would love to like do a ride along, but I think I would cry. Hands down, I admit I'd cry.
Yeah, but I think with Schumacher, all in all, just weird timing. I'm so glad he wasn't at like any fault for that, because that would have been silly.
Atrociously
That would have
silly.
been, yeah, that would have literally been probably the silliest.
It probably
thing
would have
of the
been more dangerous for him to like hit the gas and brake at the same. I don't know if that would have been more dangerous at all, but whatever. Nonetheless, that was FP1. It was very exciting. Later that day in FP2, we saw Ferrari decide to step up and show their pace. And this is the point where I realized that Sunday was going to be a 3-team fight for real. Verstappen times were just not there this session, but it really wasn't representative of what was to come, and it really wasn't representative of much. I think they were kind of ease in the gearbox. They didn't want another issue. So it was an interesting Friday, very busy in the morning and then not so busy in the later session. Then FP3 brought us. This is when the icing was sealed on the cake that Sunday was going to be an exciting race. We had Leclerc, Russell, and Verstappen 1, 2, 3 on that session. This session provided us the iconicness of the pigeons on turn 7. It also gave us the Nick DeVere's wink to the camera. Katie, get that man in an F1 car. Get that. Like Toto Wolff was not serving looks, but Nick DeVere's knew what he was doing when he looked over, saw the camera, and winked. I was like, did you learn that from Harry Styles?
And it was like a nice slow wink. He didn't rush it. He knew what he was doing.
He learned it from Harry. He learned it from Charles. It was just a lot. It was iconic. It's the Charles effect. We also had Stefano Domenicali in the commentating box. When he said the time of Charles Leclerc, I was like, oof, it just doesn't have the ring to it, Stefano, but you tried. I love it. We also had Pierre Gasly playing Mario Kart with the brake boards. I mean, he went into that board like he thought it was one of those cubes with the question mark on Mario Kart. Like, did I get a banana? Did I get a shell? What did I get? He was like right into it. And then that brought us to qualies. And look, it was interesting. I'm going to just start off by saying it was interesting. Q1 was another shitty weekend for Danny Rick, and it brought, me pure pain. It also gave us, like what Katie and I were talking about earlier, the TV people posting struggling again. Danny Rick, awful. He went out in Q1. This is his third time out in Q1 this season. We also had Sebastian Vettel going out in Q1. He was into the gravel. Q2 brought us the red flag on track. We find out later, like we said earlier, that the individual was removed by security. It also provided us more pigeons on track, which is a highlight of the weekend. Pigeons on track is my new line. It also gave us some impressive laps by Yuki, who got into Q3, Lando Norris, who went into Q3, and Lance Stroll not only made a reappearance on Instagram, but reappeared in Q3. Unfortunately, we had both Alpines out in this session, but I figured they'd be punchy and racy on Sunday, which they both were. Alonso blamed his incident on traffic. I don't really think it was traffic. I think it was just Checo Perez driving around the track, like doing his job. But nonetheless, Fernando, you do you, boo-boo. Q3. Look, this was an insane session that I'm pissed that Sergio Perez fucked up. I'm going to just say it. Because we started out with Lance Stroll not being able to get out of the pits. He would ultimately qualify P10 with some technical problems. But let me tell you, the last 5 minutes were great. Then there was annoyance at the end. Look, we had Verstappen setting the representative time provisional pole with a 1:10.5.1. We had Hamilton go second fastest. Then we had Leclerc go fastest into provisional pole. Then we had Leclerc improve on his time. Then we had Verstappen onto pole at the end, right at the end. Literally, clock hit 0. He was separated from Leclerc by 0.021. 0.021. Oh, okay. It's a race. It's going to be a race. Then we had Hamilton, Sainz, Russell on their final laps. Literally, time has elapsed. Like, I'm so mad about this. When Perez spun at the final corner, he lost the rears, brought up the yellow flag, and denied any of them any opportunity for potentially faster times. It ends with Verstappen taking pole, confirming his pole. And then he would line up next to Charles Leclerc. I was convinced it was going to be a fight between the two of them, considering how closely they were separated, but Katie will get into that, with Sainz, Hamilton, Russell, and Perez maybe in the scrap. So, Katie, look, I'm so mad about this because I think this goes back to exactly what we've been talking or what we've talked about before in Imola. If you bring out a red flag, if you cause a red flag incident in Q3 that prevents other drivers from setting a fastest lap, should you have a fastest time deleted, or should we have something like IndyCar where it says you have the 2 fastest times deleted? Like, I don't care what it is, but should there be some mechanism for punishing drivers who cause a qualifying session to be end short and screw other drivers.
Yes.
I think
yes, and yes.
Look, we were on the fence. We were on the fence after Imola. We were like, drivers are punished by this regardless, but not always. So does this incident change our minds?
I think I'm starting to lean more and more towards they get their lap time deleted or their fastest lap time deleted, because I feel like if it's a preventable mistake, and maybe, again, that's why we were in the gray a little bit, because there are some mistakes that are preventable and there are some mistakes that are not. Like, I think if your engine craps out and you're stuck in a shitty spot, like, whatever. I think that's different than you making you as a driver having a driver error and making a mistake. At the end of the day, it's still a mistake by the team and or the driver, but I think that's where it's tricky to say yes, they should be punished, or no, they shouldn't be punished, because every situation is different.
But I've changed my mind. Lap time deleted. Because you're still
deleted.
Look, if you screw up in Q2, you drop 4 places, you start 15th. If you screw up in Q3, you drop to P10. You know what? Fuck it. I have officially decided after this incident that it was unfair that Checo got to start where he was, because he prevented. I mean, look, I'm not going to be one of those people that's like Lewis Hamilton would have gotten pole, because there's a lot of that conversation. But look, there was a potential, and I wanted to witness that potential. You denied the drivers the chance, but you also denied the fans, so you should be punished. I've decided. I don't care if it's harsh. I don't care. I was annoyed by it. I do think that we should acknowledge that there were some conspiracy theories around this.
Yes.
Look, I really don't think Red Bull would be stupid enough to throw away this season by getting disqualified for the entire year, considering they're this high in the points.
I agree. I think there was some conspiracy too about Yuki bringing out the yellow flag in the race as well. You know, Helmut Marko sends the message that Yuki needs to DNF and create a yellow flag so that things can change
ludicrous
in the lineup. Like, I'm sorry, like,
it'd be ludicrous. More likely that the qualifying thing happened than the Yuki thing. I don't think either happened, but I'm saying, like, look, it would be very, very, very stupid of them to throw this year away when they're this high in both championships. And if they are that dumb, then they should deserve to be disqualified. But I don't think they're that stupid. But I am really pissed about the Checo qualifying thing. I was so excited. I was screaming. The dogs were pissed. It was turning out to be a great qualifying that really, I mean, maybe the red flag wasn't that big of a deal because it also made it an interesting conversation piece. But look, I wanted to see them cross the line. I wanted to know how fast that they were going to be able to go.
It's disappointing when it happens when the clock has already hit 0. Everyone's on their last lap and you are affecting other drivers' drive. That's where it's the gut-wrenching.
Yeah, there was like a chance that Carlos Sainz could have taken pole. There was a chance that Lewis could have. Hell, I would have I'm not going to even throw out George Russell. I'm not even going to throw out Checo, even though that was like the least likely thing because there's no way that Checo would have ever taken it from Max. We know that team is so team. I don't even know why we call it a partnership. It is Max Verstappen with his minion, Checo.
Which I've got a question for you later that I know you want me to ask you. So we'll get into that.
But yes, that was qualifying. It was a good day. It was a good Saturday. I was hyped. I was like screaming at the TV, and I'm pretty sure my neighbors are pissed at me at what qualifying was at. It ended at like 9, and I was screaming at the TV at 9 a.m. on a Saturday on a holiday weekend in America. Wow. My B. I don't even feel bad though.
Formula One's on. This podcast is brought to you by Racing Thread, Formula One clothing for any occasion.
Their clothing features subtle, evocative, embroidered designs for your favorite F1 moments.
From Ricardo's Monza shoey to Sebastian's Australian scooter ride.
From Lewis's Brazilian comeback to Carlando's round of golf.
Whether you're out to dinner with friends, watching the race at home, or cheering in the grandstands.
Gone are the embarrassing sponsor logos. Instead, Racing Thread is F1 clothing you are comfortable wearing anywhere.
Right now, Dirty Driving listeners can get 15% off Racing Thread's entire range of t-shirts, sweatshirts, and polos using the code Dirty Driving.
That's Dirty Driving, all capitals, no spaces, for 15% off their entire clothing range.
Head over to racingthread.com to shop F1 racewear for anywhere. All right, let's get into Sunday. The Sunday drama, because it was lights out and away we went with a great start by both Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. Lewis moved to block Perez, while Lando was busy getting around George Russell. Lewis and Carlos had a little kiss, little touch, while Lance Stroll made his way from 10th to 8th at the start, which, you know, we kind of ragged on Lance Stroll a couple weeks ago. I still think, again, he's back on Instagram. Maybe his mental health is back. Maybe it's not back. I don't know. Who knows what's happening with Lance Stroll, but he went from 10th to 8th at the start, and that's plenty for me to be happy for him. For a
Two
race.
positions is all we need from Lance Stroll.
That's all we need from Lance Stroll. He did end the race in 10th, so he secured a point. That's the highest finish that he's received this season. So, you know, maybe before the end of the year, we'll see him take a 9th, which I would just love to see.
I would love to see Nicholas Latifi score a point. So the one true thing that I said this was going to happen this year would come true. But, you know, I've lost hope. 10 drivers would need to DNF for that to happen and not include Latifi.
Which if we have a bowling accident,
he would be a part of it.
He would be a part.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
He'd probably be the cause
Please
of it.
continue.
No, you're good. And then we can't forget good old K-Mag, his first time on this track, first time racing here, running wide into the gravel, hitting the barrier. I thought he was going to be out, but he recovered. He recovered nicely. He made it back to the pits. He was dead last, but he was still in it. So it was another wild first lap. 2 weekends in a row.
What kills me about the K-Mag incident is so the K-Mag incident can happen, right? Where he fully sends half the side of the car into a barrier and he keeps going, but we can have the slightest touch on track and the front wings broken, the side pods ripped open, and the car can't continue. So it just kills me that this is the sport we live in, where you can fully hit a barrier and be like, good to go, tires, not a problem. And then you can have the smallest thing happen on track and both cars DNF. It just can't, that is what's wild about this sport. There is no in between. Either that or the Haas
and there's no knowing.
Different.
The Haas is just built different.
That American made. I'm kidding. That's just disgusting, and I hated myself.
Oh my God, no. I'm cutting you off. By lap 7, Verstappen was almost 2 seconds clear of Leclerc, while Fernando made moves around Pierre, then Yuki, taking both the AlphaTauris down. In lap 15, we had an unfortunate long stop for Carlos Sainz. He sat there for a little over 12 seconds waiting for a missing wheel, all while Perez ran over a Ferrari wheel gun, just absolutely demolished it. Luckily, there was no damage caused to the car.
Ferrari, pick up your shit.
But pick up your shit. Get it out of the way.
Need 4 tires? 4 tires for a car. 4. 2 in the front, 2 in the back.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I feel like we need to go back to the beginning with Carlos Sainz's pit crew.
Yeah. It's kind of like when mom says, do I need to take you back to Miss Arneson? Do I need to call Miss Arneson? Like our kindergarten teacher? like when we make a simple error, or we forget how to say the alphabet, or like something silly, or we forget that a car needs 4 wheels to drive. Should I call Miss Arneson? I think we need to call Miss Arneson on.
We need to call the Ferrari version of Mrs. Arneson. Send them back to pit crew kindergarten.
Pit crew kindergarten. So moving on, Verstappen ended up pitting around lap 19, allowing Lewis to step up and lead the race with George in second. Sainz made moves around Albon, landing in sixth, and later on in the race, another misfortune for Carlos. He had an unsafe release, granting him a 5-second penalty. So he ended the race fifth, but got bumped down 3 places to eighth, securing just 4 points for the Scuderia. Megan, while we're here, let's talk about Ferrari.
I don't want
because Bonotto finally acknowledged, finally addressed, finally came to all senses that needed to be come to, and said, so simply not as good in terms of now it's 3 races in a row where Ferrari has lost out, from Hungary, from Spa, here. So I think we are not exploiting maybe the full potential of the car, and there's something wrong that we need to address.
Oh, really? Wow. What an insightful statement, Bonotto. You are just so worldly and very aware of the things that are happening in your own team. This is so surprising. No, like, what the hell? I could have told you that. Like,
where have you
not
been
paying attention? Have you not been aware
also,
of what's happening? Your mechanics don't know that you need 4 tires. They also, in the tightest pit lane on the track, we're like, throw the wheel gun over here. I'm surprised there wasn't a conspiracy theory or one that I've seen that Ferrari did that intentionally. Like, but I'm just so, like, I just poked myself in the eye. I'm just so baffled by Bonotto finally being like, oh my God, maybe we are not exploiting the potential of this Ferrari that was the fastest car months ago. This is so surprising. Cool, bro. Cool, Bonotto. I could have told you that. That is literally like an oh duh statement. Like, spaghetti is a thin, long noodle. That was like as just duh. You stated the obvious statement. Thank you, sir. Have a great day. See you in Monza with this knowledge.
See you in Monza. See you in Monza, where hopefully now that we've addressed that there are issues, we see some improvements on the issues that have now once again been addressed, that there are issues. I would have thought that when he walked off of the pit wall and couldn't watch the rest of the race, that we would have gotten that quote that weekend. Because if you are leaving the pit wall in the middle of a race, there's clearly something wrong.
Like, do we think Maranello is already preparing to have like a cry party on Sunday night next weekend? Like, pull up, cry party's already scheduled.
I'm surprised the Italian people haven't rioted
honestly
yet.
Catch me at the Tafasi headquarters on Sunday night crying. We all know what's going to happen.
We do.
It's literally like
sad
watching
moment.
A train wreck right now when it comes to Ferrari's strategy.
It's bad. It's bad. First it was the McDonald's merch, and now it's a train wreck.
Honestly, they really should have copied off of Chick-fil-A merch. They're much more efficient. You copied off the wrong fast food establishment.
Damn you, Ferrari.
Next time, check out the Chick-fil-A uniforms. They'll offer more insight on efficiency as well as fashion. Maybe not on fashion. I don't understand how Chick-fil-A does it. Honestly, Chick-fil-A is faster in the fast food line than Ferrari is in their pit stops. Maybe the mechanic should spend some time at the Chick-fil-A drive-thru.
You should study
Hot take.
Maybe we should. Hot take. Dirty
Not
take.
that I love Chick-fil-A, but I'm just saying their efficiency is astounding. They can get
well done fries.
They can get through like a 40 car drive-through, aka 40 car pit stop in no time. Ferrari leaving their shit everywhere. and the Chick-fil-A doesn't leave their fryer in the way of the McDonald's drive-through person to hit. Just wheel gun, we don't need that. You don't have a tire on the car. You need that. Okay.
We don't need that. We don't have a tire. Why would we need a wheel gun?
Rough.
It's a rough weekend. It's a rough time. In lap 27, we had Max pull ahead of George Russell for second place before Lewis pit, putting Max back in the lead of the race. In lap 36, we had a nice little battle between Lewis and Checo. It was forming. We were getting the entertainment. And the order stood as Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, Hamilton. By the very next lap, Lewis overtook Checo on the outside of turn 6, and 2 laps following that, George himself got around Checo as well. Now it's time to talk about Yuki. So get ready, Megan. After a pit, all of a sudden we see Yuki pull to the side of the track, complaining about something wrong in the car, the wheel not being properly fitted. You know, something's wrong. I'm going to pull off to the side, which caused the yellow flag to appear. So he's able to get back on track, make it back to the pits where we see a tire change. And then, I think it was 3, it might have been 4 mechanics reaching into the cockpit, fiddling around fast, moving around, doing something with the seatbelts. We knew something was going on. It was almost as bad as the duct tape. I will say it. It was almost
the whole incident was more cringy than the duct tape.
Cringy for sure. And in the post race, we come to find out that Yuki loosened his belts and was prepared to get out of the car before he made it back to the pits. Before he was able to restart the car itself. So he leaves the pits after the seatbelt thing, after changing into new tires, and doesn't make it far before pulling off near safety road and DNFing. So in the after, they take a look at everything that has happened, Yuki admitted to loosening his belts. He was reprimanded for doing so as a safety concern. So he will actually face a 10-place grid penalty in Monza because he's reached the 5 reprimand limit in a season, which I don't know where the other drivers stand in reprimands, but I feel like we got to 5 awfully quick. And I don't know if I've ever seen a 10-place grid penalty for hitting that. Not that I can remember off the top of my head.
But it has to have happened. It has to have happened.
Oh,
recently.
For sure it's had to have happened because it's a rule, but I don't think I've seen it in recent years. So let's just talk a little bit about that, what that does for him. And
I don't even care what it does for him. It's fucking annoying. I think AlphaTauri should be more punished for the fact that they allowed him to go back on track knowing something was wrong with the car. They should have just had him come to the pits and be done. Be done. Don't try to tighten the belts and put him back out on track. I think that was more annoying. It was just fucking annoying. The whole thing, the whole disaster that it was annoying. And I really think at the end of the day, it should be AlphaTauri that was reprimanded, because if he had loosened his belts, he should have just jumped out of the car and been done. The first time he pulled over. But no, they made him go to the pits, fix things, and then go back out. No, don't go out the second time. If you can make it to the pits, retire the car, be done. That was ridiculous and annoying. That's all I'm going to say. It was just annoying. And so do I care that he has 10-place grid penalty?
Yeah.
No. Do I think he should have been punished? Well, he should have been reprimanded. It's just his own fault for having that many reprimands this year. But I will say, why is AlphaTauri not being questioned on why they allowed him to go out again? Something was wrong. It was also ridiculous that you didn't know what was wrong. But it's not going to affect anything in Monza, I don't think, other than his race and AlphaTauri's ability to win points.
Okay, perfect. Back to the race. So Max, Lewis, and George all pit under the safety car, rearranging the order to Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell, and Leclerc. In lap 55, we see Valtteri come to a stop on the main straight. He pulled over towards the end, right across the finish line, and the safety car is deployed. We run through the pits to avoid the car so they're able to get it off the track, and Russell calls for softs over the radio while Lewis took mediums. Max pitted for softs as well, putting Lewis back into the lead. The safety car ends with 12 laps to go. So we've got a Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc, and Perez top 5. Almost immediately after the restart, Verstappen gets around Hamilton due to the tires not being warm enough for Lewis and just costing him valuable seconds. 2 laps later, Max is over 2 seconds clear of Hamilton. He's got the pace. He's got it going on. And then we see Georgie come out and overtake Lewis for second place, while Leclerc does the same, picking off Lewis for third. So Lewis was pissed. He got a little frustrated over the radio, calling out to the team that, you guys screwed me. I don't know how this is happening, all of these things. In the post-race, he, apologized to the team and said how appreciative he is of all the mechanics and everything. But poor end to the race for Lewis. Absolutely poor race. Poor end for him. Lap 72 gave us the final lap and the finale to Max Verstappen's 10th win this season, followed by George Russell matching his best ever finish in second, and Charles Leclerc rounding out the podium. Hamilton, Perez, Alonso, Norris, Sainz, Ocon, and Stroll rounded out the rest of the points in the top 10. And Megan, I've got one question for you because I know you want to talk about it. Is Max Verstappen in a different car than Checo Perez?
I don't necessarily, I joke and say that, right? I do joke and say that. The car is designed to be driven to Max Verstappen's style. But I genuinely feel like they're doing massive setup differences between the two and using Checo as their canary in the coal mine. You go out and test the hards and you let us know. It doesn't care if it compromise. They don't care if they compromise his race. And I think we're going to see that more and more and more because now they've solidified the constructors essentially. I think that's pretty clear. So it doesn't matter if he gets shuffled down to P5 if they can use him as a setup testing ground to help Max win races. So it definitely feels like we keep saying again and again and again, this is a Red Bull team with Max Verstappen as their driver and their test subject, Checo Perez. Which, you know what, if Checo's fine with that, cool. You're making a shit ton of money. You're at Red Bull Racing. They seem like they have a great relationship. Happy as can be. It's not like you really want to be anywhere else, but it also feels just kind of shitty and annoying. But I don't know. I think what the team dynamic that's much more interesting right now is the team dynamic at Mercedes that people have been talking about and the whole strategy choice. I think good on George Russell for being look, I want softs. I think that was totally him. That was totally his call. But I don't actually know if there was any situation in which Max wasn't winning because the Red Bull was just so much faster with the safety car. Once the safety car happened, I don't know if there's a strategy in which Red Bull doesn't win. Because if Lewis had pitted for softs, then he would have lost track position and been behind Max and would have been having to chase Max, both on softs, yes, but Red Bull had the faster pace all weekend that we're aware of. So, look, they made a call. And I think the fact that we're even talking about Mercedes being in the fight for a win is impressive. And once the safety car happened, I think it was kind of done.
Yeah. I've got 2 more questions for you. They're both quick. They can be rapid fire. 1, do we think Lewis Hamilton is rattled? We've seen...
No. I don't think he's rattled at all. I think, again, he is look, we are still in this. We're still fighting. We had George Russell was still ahead of the Ferrari. The car does have it. And I think now it's just again, they've been sweeping up the points when the top two teams get flustered. And so if there's a race where something happens with that Red Bull, if something happens to Max Verstappen's Red Bull and he's out, Lewis Hamilton wins. And truthfully, like, I'm still not convinced we're not going to see like another race where there isn't a Max Verstappen win. I really hope so, because look, I'm not looking for entertainment right now. Like, I'm entertained by the sport still. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to watch in the races. There's a lot of overtakes. I mean, we saw Fernando Alonso move up through the ranks from P13 to P6. So there's stuff happening on track. Like, it's still an entertaining sport. I don't want the triple header to be dominated by Max Verstappen. Like, I still want a fight in there. And look, I'm happy with the fight for 2 and 3. But look, I'd like a fight for 1, 2, and 3. I don't know.
And I'd like it to not always be the top 3
Yeah,
teams.
I want a midfield team to – it will be very annoying to me that there's not like a one-off weird race like we've had in seasons like at least one before. Hopefully it's Monza. Hopefully Monza shakes things up. I don't know. The Red Bull's going to be fast.
Which brings me to my second question. Will Max break the record for most wins this season? So he's got 10 now, and the record stands at 13.
We have 6 races left, 7 races left. Oh, yeah, I think so. He's probably going to win more than 3. Wait, do we have 6 or 7? Monza, Japan, Singapore, Austin, Mexico, Brazil. We got 7. Yeah, he'll win 4. He could win 5.
All right. Another prediction. Another Megan Hornsby prediction. Let's see if it comes true.
I wouldn't be surprised if he won 5. It will blow my mind if he wins all 7. Okay, let's chat about fantasy. Katie remains in 17th. Ay caramba. Well, I'm sitting pretty in 4th. Should we get tattoos in Austin, Katie?
Yes. Let's do some research. The time has come. I will wave my white flag. There's no way I'm having a Brazilian come back and beating you. So let's get tattoos in Austin.
If anyone has any recommendations on tattoo shops in Austin, send them our way. What do we think? Like Monday after?
Yeah, Monday after, or even like Thursday afternoon after we do the track walk.
If we're doing Thursday, the temperature needs to be under 90. Because I'm not sitting in the heat with a new tattoo on my arm. I will be itchy and uncomfortable.
All right, then we can go Monday.
If it's going to be cooler than 90, I would consider doing it on Thursday. But look, I ain't sitting in the heat with an itchy tattoo.
All right.
Our podium for this weekend, we had Gavo 11 as our Max Verstappen, the Formula Interested Americans as George Russell, and N. Panterel as Charles Leclerc. I chose VB as my talent driver, and it just didn't work out for me because of that damn DNF. He won't be my talent driver again. Let me just say, I've lost out for that man. I stand that man. I'll wear his bucket hat any day, but it'll be the first bucket hat I ever wear in my life. All for VB.
I got it for you right here.
VB.
It's going in your box.
Katie, fill us in on your betting.
Oh, my betting. I placed a couple bets this weekend. Kept it pretty calm, pretty normal. I feel like last week I went balls to the walls with bets, and so wanted to keep it simple. I did winning margin and won that one, winning margin under, the cat, Let me get her off. I'll cut that. So I placed a couple bets this weekend, winning margin. I lost out on my winner. I did not pick Max Verstappen. I chose Lewis Hamilton just because, why not throw a $5 here and there? You might win something big. So, nothing too crazy in the betting world this week. In a weird turn of events,
the intern decided to put $5 on George Russell, which would have been a massive power move if he had, and he did it before qualifying too. I was like, first off, who are you? And second off, could that be a power move? If George Russell would have won,
that honestly could be
$185 on a $5 bet.
Do you know what the odds were? I probably could
I don't know. All he told me was 185 was what he could win. I was like, damn, okay.
So good odds. Great odds.
If George came in second, I don't think he was going to pass Max, but like if Max gearbox shit out on the last lap, he would have won.
Damn
that gearbox that fucking falling apart on Sunday instead of Friday. I'm kidding. Shouldn't wish that. Okay, Katie, let us begin with our winners and losers. And because I can't say that word, I'm going to start with my winner. This is
all right.
I feel like I've already hinted that I've chosen him, but I have chosen Fernando Alonso as my winner of the weekend, really because of his Sunday performance. So he might drive me insane sometimes, and I might not love him, or even he's not even in my like top 5 favorite drivers, but I have to give it to him for this weekend. He started P13 and finished P6 ahead of both Norris and Ocon. He was up 7 places. He was showing some great race pace. And really, whenever he's on these like flyers, I just think that it shows his racecraft. He does have a great racecraft. He knows when to go for the move, and he does it very efficiently. But overall, he has scored points in the last 10 races. Only Max Verstappen has a better run than him on points finishes. And he is now 7 points back from his teammate in the drivers, and he's 21 points behind Norris. So I genuinely think that he could overtake Norris in the drivers. Him and Ocon will be tight because the Alpines are looking good, but I definitely think both Alpines will finish ahead of Norris in the drivers' championship.
My winner of the weekend was George Russell. Not only was it his 75th Grand Prix, but his second place ties his best ever result, and he continues his run of 14 top 5 finishes in 15 Grand Prix. So Mr. Consistency, Mr. Saturday is still showing us that he has it. He also moves ahead of Carlos Sainz in the driver's standings. He's up to 4th. And it's just 13 points below Leclerc. So he had strong race pace and called for softs, had a great call for softs, and then he picked off Lewis Hamilton. So I think, one of the best things is picking off your teammates when it's kind of not expected. So he's my winner of the weekend.
If Ferrari has another DNF, George Russell, I would not be surprised if George Russell is ahead of Leclerc in the drivers by the end of the year.
And I would love a George Russell win before the end of the year.
I want a Lewis and I want a George win. That might be asking for too much. So, look, I can only have what I can have. I honestly thought about Hamilton for my loser because I do think he lost out on strategy at the end. But ultimately, there's no chance in hell I could go with anyone other than Carlos Sainz. He was the utter loser of Sunday. He qualified within 0.1 seconds of pole position. But on Sunday, he just didn't seem to have any of the pace compared to his teammate, Charles Leclerc. It was kind of upsetty spaghetti in the first 15 laps when you could just see Charles moving up and Carlos moving back. But nonetheless, it was all just unfortunate for Carlos on Sunday. He had that 12.7 second pit stop where the mechanics again just forgot that you need 4 tires on a car. But Nato has said that they've addressed the issue. Like what? Showing him a picture of a car? I don't understand. But nonetheless,
oh my God, Megan.
But Nato has addressed the issue, or the issue has been addressed. Let's see if there's better pit stops this weekend in their home country. Let's see. Then he also had that unsafe release into the path of an Alpine for a 5-second penalty. So it just, he had a radio message. He was like, just let this end. And honestly, I felt the same way for him. He ultimately ended the race P8.
All right, my loser. We talked about him a lot. I'm sure you can guess, but it's Yuki. He had great qualities, landing in the top 10. However, we saw his race just absolutely unraveled. Now he's facing the 10-place grid penalty in Monza for the seatbelt shenanigans. And he's now gone 9 races without scoring. So that's Yuki for you. He's my loser.
He needs Alex Albon back as his driver coach. Get Albon back. Just kidding. Leave Albon where he is. And hopefully we have an Albon-Nick DeVries duo at Williams. That'd be awesome. Just imagine Nick DeVries taking his helmet off and then doing the wink.
And
all the
every
time.
weekend.
I love it.
All the time.
The honorable mention for this week is Lando Norris. He predicted his P7 quali result when he walked into the paddock on Saturday morning, and then he took P7. He ultimately finished the race P7, which was partially due to that penalty from the other part of the Carlando golfing duo. But nonetheless, I feel like it was an overall great weekend for Lando compared to his teammate, and really compared to the rest of the grid. He held his position at the end of the day. So I got to give it to him. Honorable mention of the weekend.
And then our hidden gem, Megan, I didn't add this in here because I wanted to surprise you with it. And we kind of already talked about it at the beginning, but I wrote it in my notes that Karina was there supporting Mick. And again, it's just so nice to see family there supporting. Kelly was there, Max's mom, Max's sister was there for the home race. I think it is often reminding of, at the end of the day, they're also human and they've got family who comes out and supports them. And that was my hidden gem for the week, was seeing her smiley and happy and they're supporting.
I love that. I do like that. I did love seeing all the family there this weekend. Up next, we have the Italian Grand Prix in Monza, our favorite track. I say that, but there's a couple others that we like as well. But the 53-lap race takes place on Sunday, September 9th for round 16th of the season for the third race in this epic triple header, which has been dominated by Max Verstappen. But it is literally impossible for us Danny Rick fans to not get goosebumps when we remember this moment. We know the Monza moment. We know it. Danny Rick crossing the line for victory for that epic 1-2 last year and the first McLaren win since 2012. It was insane, literally insane. But it was the location of the second sprint race last year, which saw the massive incident between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen at the tight T1, T2 chicane, which is one of the best overtaking spots on the track at the end of the main straight after the start finish line. Hopefully we don't have an incident this year, but the race start should be a nail biter. While we don't have a sprint race this weekend, I don't think this historic track is going to disappoint at all, especially with the cars that are going to allow for closer racing this year. It should be very interesting to see how that closer racing occurs, what goes down at the Temple of Speed this year. The track's history is unmatched. Really, only a few could even be talked about in the same sentence with it. It was built in 1922. It's the oldest track in mainland Europe. It holds the distinction as the world's third purpose-built track after Brooklands and Indy. It is one of the 4 tracks that can all be talked about in historicness on the calendar that participated in the inaugural season of the F1 Championship. Ferrari has been the most successful team here at their home race, but most recently, their last win was Charles Leclerc in 2019. So could it happen? I don't know. I have a feeling that this might be 3 for 3 Max Verstappen in this triple header. But join us next week for our race recap and find out. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us at Dirty Driving Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
Until next time, stay dirty.